me give a background of my research topic. Here, actually, in the Maldives, we have started, we have ratified the United Nations Convention on the Right of Persons with Disabilities in 2010. And after that, once the UNCRPD was ratified in the Maldives, remarkable steps were taken. For example, the very first Disability Act was enacted in 2010, and also after that, disability-specific legislations were drawn. And also in Maldives in 2013, the very first inclusive education policy was ratified. And once the inclusive education was ratified, all public schools of the Maldives, they got opportunity to practice inclusive education in schools. And also from this policy, they have created a job vacancy for the special education teachers to work in the public schools of the Maldives. But when we talk about the way the practices were like the IE policy, it has some kind of segregated practices as well. But and also one of the remarkable steps taken in the Maldives currently was implementing or ratifying the national curriculum framework, which has very inclusive focused components. For example, when we talk about the IE principles, when we talk about the principles of the national curriculum framework, and also when we talk about the pedagogical dimensions and also the key competencies, which has very high focus on implementing inclusive practices in schools. And another remarkable step taken in Maldives was enacting the Education Act in 2020, which resulted in revising the inclusive education policy in 2021. And also the Education Act, which enforces all stakeholders or all stakeholders to take responsibility to provide equitable quality inclusive education in schools. So the revised inclusive education policy, which talks about which gives high priority on implementing inclusive pedagogy like universal design for learning, co-teaching model, and also differentiated instructions. And also it has 9 principles, which talks about collaborative practices, and also multi-sectorial approaches, and also whole school approach while practicing inclusive practicing in schools. So this is a summary of a background, and since the IE policy, it has high priority on implementing inclusive pedagogy. So my research, I have focused on this area. So the main objectives, this component, the main objectives are to identify sentiments, attitudes, and concerns of inclusive education teachers, in-service teachers, including primary teachers, special education teachers, preschool teachers, and also the relief and contract teachers towards inclusive education. And also to find out the barriers for implementing inclusive education in Maldivian schools. In order to achieve these objectives, I have developed questions which include do in-service teachers want to identify whether they have a positive attitude towards inclusive education, and also to identify whether there are any differences between teachers' view when compared with the demographic variables, and also the barriers, what are the barriers for implementing inclusive education in Maldivian schools. So based on that, for the quantitative data collection, I have developed a hypothesis as well. So the null hypothesis was in-service teachers, they do not have a positive attitude towards inclusive education. And the hypothesis was in-service teachers, they have a positive attitude towards inclusive education. And since there are 10 demographic variables, and also I focused on identifying the differences between these demographic variables, I have developed 10 hypotheses for those variables as well. So these are the hypotheses to be checked. And this is the theoretical framework of this component of my research. Actually, since we are talking about inclusive education pedagogy, which underpins with the theories such as social cultural theory and also social cognitive theory. And also, since we are talking about implementing new practices in our system, which is also related to diffusion of innovation theory. When we talk about the social cultural theory, which basically talks about having social interactions with students so that it will develop students' learning and also their behavior, their thinking and their behavior. And so they can learn through imitative learning, interactive learning, and also collaborative learning, which is also related to inclusive practices. And also social cognitive theory, which basically talks about the capability of a human being, and also it depends on their the way that they are natural, that the natural things that they have, and also at the same time the experience. It is basically talks about giving high quality experience to the students so that from the experiences we can trigger their capability. It triggers a human being's capability by having experiences or experiential conditions. And also diffusion of innovation theory, it also talks about how an idea it disseminates in a system, and also it depends on the way people think, and also their adapter category. And also there are like 5 adapter categories, which includes innovators and also early adapters and early majority, late majority, and the laggards. And also the theoretical framework, it talks about once teachers they get once they have experiences in having classroom practices like inclusive education pedagogy practices in the classrooms, and when they have opportunities to be with the students with disabilities, or in the revised policy we call the students with complex learning profile, so which result in which affects the way they think towards inclusive education. Sometimes they are more positive if they are aware of it, that the literature says like that. And also the literature, it says that students with complex learning profile, they get more benefit when we implement inclusive pedagogy. So that is the theoretical framework. And the methodology, it includes the research approach and design. Here I have used a mixed method approach, so that means both qualitative and quantitative type of data collection were used. And also I have applied concurrent triangulation strategy, so that by using this concurrent triangulation strategy, I can cross-validate and incorporate findings of my research. And also I can counterbalance weaknesses of one methodology over another one. And so it saved my time. The participants include in-service teachers from foundation to grade 6. So around 617 in-service teachers, they participated in this survey. And the probability sampling method and also simple random sampling techniques were used in order to collect quantitative data. And also to collect qualitative data, 30 in-service teachers were selected as the participants, and I have done focus group interviews. So the selection was done by using non-probability sampling method and also purposeful sampling technique, so that in order to get the required information, I have done for the qualitative component, I have done the purposeful sampling technique. And here, in order to collect quantitative data, I have adapted the survey questionnaire. It covers demographic components, and also I have adapted a survey developed by a survey form developed by Foley, and it is IRSE scale with a 4-point Likert scale. And since it is validated, I haven't done any validation process for this component, for this scale. And also I have adapted to find challenges and also the barriers. I have adapted a 5-point Likert scale with 10 items developed by researchers. And also for qualitative component, I have developed open-ended questions. And data analysis were done by using thematic framework, and also for the quantitative data analysis was done by using specific tests such as independent sample t-test and one-way ANOVA. And these are the results. The result, it showed that both qualitative and also quantitative findings of the study showed that in-service teachers, they had a positive view towards inclusive education. And when I compared with, as I said before, I have compared the demographic variables with their view towards inclusive education. And these are the findings that I have found from my research, which includes the age category. When I compared the age category of participants among their view towards inclusive education, the results showed that the youngest age category, which means from 18 to 30 years of teachers, they had more positive attitude towards inclusive education when compared to the other groups of other age groups. And also the teachers with 1 to 9 years or less than 1 year of teaching experience, they had more positive attitude towards inclusive education compared to other groups. And also the special education teachers, they had more positive attitude towards inclusive education when compared with the preschool and primary or relief or contract teachers. And so the special education teachers with bachelor's degree, they had more positive attitude towards inclusion when compared to the other groups. And also the teachers who attend inclusive education programs, they had more positive attitude towards inclusion when compared to the remaining groups. And also the in-service teachers who had highest number of short trainings, they had more positive attitude when compared to the teachers with non-training, also some of the trainings. And so the teachers with highest level of experience in teaching students with complex learning profile, they had more positive attitude towards inclusion when compared to the teachers with some and non-experience. And also the teachers who had a family member with a learning difficulty or a disability, they had more positive attitude towards inclusive education when compared to the family members without any students with disability or students with learning difficulties. And also the teachers with high level of confidence in teaching students with complex learning profile, they had more favorable attitude towards inclusion when compared to the teachers who did not have, who had average or low level of confidence in teaching students with complex learning profile. The qualitative result also showed that inclusive education benefit all students and also students with complex learning profile. They try to participate in activities when they are included in mainstream settings, and also they get opportunity to interact with their students and with their peers, and also it can improve their social skills when they are given opportunity to be in the mainstream setting, and when they get opportunity to be with their peers and have social interactions with them. Similarly, the other students also, the remaining students, not only that benefit the students with disabilities, the remaining students also get their social skills are developed, and also their cooperative skills are developed according to the teachers, their experiences. And these are the main common barriers that we have found, which includes specialized training in special education instead of inclusive education, and also the special infrastructure development is also a barrier according to their view. And also the parental attitude is also a barrier for inclusion. The large number of students, another barrier includes large number of students in mainstream classrooms, and also lack of collaboration between general education and special education teachers. And also school staff and leader unaware of inclusive education. This is also considered as a barrier. And another barrier included was inflexible extracurricular activities, which restricts students with complex learning profile to take part in activities. And these are the implications. in order to have more inclusive practices, it's very important to conduct more awareness sessions on inclusive education for the key stakeholders, and also provide short trainings related to inclusive education programs and build teachers' confidence. It's very important. And also it's important to set carefully designed plans to implement IE practices in schools. And also it's important to develop flexible co-curricular activities and ensure accessibility for all the students. And it's very important to showcase best practices of schools and teachers related to inclusive education. And also stakeholders and relevant authorities work collaboratively to remove barriers for inclusion. And it's important to give opportunity to the stakeholders to experience inclusive education program, because the result it showed like that. And those are the findings of my research. And any question? Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much, Adila. Now, it's one of the interesting area for research, but there is a dearth of research evidence to take informed policy level decisions. Though which part of the globe we are residing, right? The problems are similar when I going through these presentations, right? It was a really nice presentations, and I would like to give the mic to the audience so that you can ask any questions from Adila, right? She's online. Adila, while getting ready for them to, I had one question in my mind. Now, during your presentation, you said that you were selecting 600 some teachers, right, using that simple random sampling. And IRSE is, it's geographically with some miles and all that. And how did you manage to get that number of teachers?
I have emailed my questionnaire to all the schools that I have selected. So, and also I have given reminder for the school principal first, by completing the ethical procedure. I have got permission from the Ministry of Education to conduct my research. And after that, since I'm working in the Department of Inclusive Education, we have connections with all the schools. So the selected schools, I have emailed my questionnaire, and I have and also I called them and gave reminder for them to complete within the given a period of time, so that I have got that much participation for my survey.
Okay, thank you very much for giving this opportunity, Adila. Now I have one question, that is, in your findings, you said that the special education teachers, they have a negative attitude towards inclusive practices. And
Positive.
Is it that positive?
Positive.
Okay, right.
Positive attitude.
Positive attitude.
Yeah,
Right.
all the special education teachers, at the same time, those who practice inclusive education programs, and also those who have experience with students. So the general understanding is from this research that if we have experience with the students and if we are aware of inclusive pedagogy, we have more positive view towards inclusive education than others.
Thank you. Thank you.
It's a positive trend that, the younger generation of teachers, 18 to 30, as far as I can remember right now, they have more positive attitudes towards special education. Am I right, Adila?
Yeah.
Right. When you compare them with the 40, 50, the older teacher population, right? So that is a good trend.
I did comparison, and we showed that they have, I think because they are much more aware. And also the younger teachers, they have completed their degrees. Those who completed degrees, that means that is a full-time, like 3 years study program they have completed on inclusive education or special education. So I think that is the main reason why they have more positive attitude towards inclusive education than other groups.
Okay, thank you very much, Adila, for your interesting presentations. Right now,
Thank you.
the next presentation, I think. HCS has really I beg your pardon if I'm mispronouncing your name. And there are three researchers, A. Kumar and
If I just may say,
Om.
Haji Alic. Haji
Right.
Alic.
Okay. Sorry, Professor, if I'm mispronouncing
No,
your name,
No
right?
problem. no
Okay,
problem.
now you are ready and please start your presentation.
Good afternoon. I have sent my presentation. I would like kindly to ask Mrs. Sanka to present it. It has been recorded. I will be here available for any questions afterwards.
Is that so? Now we are going to play the presentation. Professor, now you can stand and during the Q&A session, you can take part in the audience in answering the questions raised by audience.
Yes.
Clear?
Yes.
Right. Okay.
Sometimes scientists wonders why so simple things cannot be implemented, and by doing that too up to extreme positive goal, develop human social existence, while at the same time not to be afraid that somebody would accuse them that they are biased and subjective. Also, science is subjective by all means because it is based on quantitative and qualitative analysis of the focused goal and achievements. Only then. So, why media literacy have not been implemented within the schooling system in India as the must subject within the primary school? Why children do not know about media literacy in media ethics in general? For which reason children are kept away from the basic critical thinking approach and development of human mind towards better understanding of society for the purposes of being better for them in the future? Answers are very simple, but before giving them, we will go through the analysis of the case study we have conducted recently among the children of between 10 and 14 years of age in India in the state of Maharashtra. Media content and the youth. Special ethical issues. Public as the whole, researchers and creators of the politics treat the youth as a special type of the media consumers. Children are much more exposed to the risk or negative consequences of the influences of media messages because kids are on a much lower level of development in cognitive, emotional, and moral point of view, and does not have experience in real life for the academic processing of media messages. But when we leave, let's put it this way, when we leave childhood, just to move, yes, to be able to see, childhood and enter growing stage, that does not mean appropriate media literacy by three reasons. First, many young and adult people does not make progress in development much more than from the level achieved in childhood. Secondly, life experience of many adults is not so various and substantial to make possible rising of the level of media literacy. Third, gaining of media literacy and through that proper ethical approach requests also development of special abilities and active application of the skills. It does not come automatically with the age. Treats to children generate emotive responses which can be harnessed to capture readers and audiences. It follows that there is always a risk that stories and images of about children will be valued as much for their marketing potential as for the social significance of the stories themselves. As a result, children are often represented in the media as victims, villains, or as cute attachments to adults. Identifying specific children considered to be a risk of harm, exploitation, or abuse can bring danger to them and their families. At the same time, as I said, at the same time, the denial of children's identities by treating them as icons can be problematic. Such iconic representation does not does little to improve recognition of their rights and dignity as human beings. Media professionals have a significant role to play in developing effective media literacy programs within schools, as well as vested interest in ensuring that future generations recognize the value and come to trust the mass media as a source of reliable information. Media literacy will also change the vested commercial interests of the media, as well as encouraging the development of future generations of competent media professionals. On question 2 of our survey, out of 309 children of between 10 and 14 years old, we gathered 295 answers, where majority of the children are on Instagram social media. Children are following a variety of issues online. Out of 298 answers, majority of them, 51.3%, follows everything mentioned within the questionnaires. But also, majority of them have found some violent accumulated issues online being on social media. Some answers were linked to the extremely important issues. I feel offensive reading about stories of raping victims, reporting lies or not tested theories, use of slangs, coarse words. Sometimes I don't find it offensive, as there are reviews of movies sometimes that have offensive language. Some media regarding the issues surrounding self-image aren't that sensitive or empathic towards people who actually struggle with them, because sometimes they post offensive means. Those are the answers. And then continues. At times I have seen content that may emotionally harm someone. There is some abusive content occasionally. Content is not appropriate to my age. There are a lot of hate speech and fake news. Sometimes wrong information making fun of friends, wrong impact. But we have social watchdogs and abusive content, the relations between that. We just mentioned some of the answers, out of more than 300 of them, related to the issue of media-related content within social media. But in general, as it said, out of 42.4% of interviewed that complained about the content filled with violent, humiliated, and defamation words related, we have to point out how to overcome the issue and find a solution for those who are not media literate to see through it especially. Because only 37.3% of the children talk about social media in school and ethical issues within it. Social watchdogs are never far away from the center of the scene when we are talking about follow-up of the content on social media. The question of abusive content is the one of the most problematic ethical dilemmas, most problematic ethical dilemmas for media professionals. For example, some shocking photos published in newspaper might be of abusive content. Some sentences within the story might be found abusive if some conservative found it disturbing. Morally, abusive content is very wide and probably very badly defined theme. Of course, internet is the place where you can find most of above within all kind of pornography, vulgarity, and a lot of blatant and abusive content. What is the solution? Mentioned earlier, education through media literacy, and if we would like to make it better, we should start from ourselves. Sorry. As saying, if you want to change something, be the change in first place. Media literacy enables primary children, future citizens, for the political choices, to understand political discourse and participation within it. In this way, as mature, media literate, well-informed citizens, they will be able to make their own decisions about the democratic electoral process. However, adolescents, young people, and adults, but also the oldest citizens, often need to be media literate, especially due to the fact that in the age of new media and new technologies, the knowledge that we possess becomes obsolete very quickly, and it is certainly necessary to participate in lifelong learning as within the media literacy of all generations of citizens. Media literate societies, healthy society of new technological awareness that will unify understanding of tradition of new technology, that will, within the interaction, help the society to create a newly established relations with education on verifiable facts, which are so very much visible in the postmodern society of the 21st century. Media literacy enables nations to recognize hidden agendas within the transmission of information, not just within the media, but also within the society as a whole, especially within the education. For the purpose of the lifelong learning, regardless if we have media literacy as obligatory module in the primary or the secondary school, or we have it within the general educational planning process of the society as grown-ups. Media literacy is the critical approach what you see and hear. Having in mind that 23.3%, 68% out of 292, 70%, 5.4% disqualified answers of total 309. Talk in school about media literacy rights, a question about 224, 76.6, and they are focused on critical thinking within the world of living. It is directly linked to the last question of the survey asking if yes is the answer on question 8, then in 10 words, in which way you talk about media literacy, just to mention certain answers. So the people, answers were like, so the people use online platforms correctly and ethically to guide it and understand it better. It gives us knowledge about society which is in front of us. In social studies, we often learn about the structure of media and how it manipulates it, how media acts as an important channel to raise awareness. The ability to critically think about social media posts and online news stories makes you an educated consumer of these stories. More others will be presented within the paper, of course. And it helps to understand teachers' approach to students, world of understanding of social media platforms. But all of these were individual approach of teachers to the class of students. Nothing organized. Nothing in behalf of the educational process sui generis. De facto great news, but de jure bad news. Why? On this question, let us give another question. What if teacher approach is like a ball measure, no approach of 76.6% of transfer on all the educational process? That means in front of us are future narrow-minded, easy to manipulate, without critical approach within the world of living. Individuals who obey, listen, and execute, and will present them within social media. We can only hope that the mentioned will be positive ones, but in today's world of living in the world, majority of will is negative, totalitarian, and retrograde by all means. We came to the conclusions and the recommendations. Basic understanding of the survey lead us to the conclusion how weak media literacy is presented within the ages 10 to 14 in the state of Maharashtra, India. Population approximately 115 million. And what is needed to be done to expand knowledge of importance of media literacy, including of the subject media literacy within the school. Why? Because lack of media literacy knowledge, other lack of knowledge exists. How to avoid bullying over social media and how to communicate with others in online and offline worlds. The literate person are better citizens, parents, and workers. As literacy grew throughout the world during the 20th century, a new feeling emerged that it was not just enough to know how to write and read. In a world where media dominates, an individual must be able to understand, sort, and analyze the information he needs within the garbage of which he is bombarded each day over the social networks and other mass media. Children need to learn how, through the craftsmanship, a particular message is structured and why, what is used to transfer it, which gadgets, to keep their attention, and what ideas have been sent to them. In a culture where the media is impenetrable and pervading all the pores of the society, children need to learn to think critically about what they see, hear, or read. Indeed, education of children must not end without the above. Finally, media literacy is important for democratic society. Democracy cannot coexist with media literacy. Media literacy is conditio sine qua non of democracy. Also, as asked before, you can see as well the references which can be used for the elaboration and writing of the paper. And of course, thank you very much for inviting us to be within this conference. And if you have any questions, I will be able to answer. I hope so. Thank you one more time for your attention.
Thank you very much, Professor, for your excellent presentation on media literacy, right? So one of the area we are interested in these days because we are in the process of curriculum reforms, and one of the area
scientists wonders why so simple things cannot be implemented, and by doing that too up to extreme positive goal. Okay, good.
Yes.
Thank
Now
you.
my audience can ask questions from Professor Rustic. And I can see media experts here, Mr. Bandru Dayaratna. And till they prepare for their questions, I would like to ask one question, Professor. During your conclusions, I saw that it was not clear for me. This is just a clarification. You said that democracy cannot coexist with media literacy. What does that mean? I could not get it.
Media literacy is a condition without which democracy cannot exist. It's no coexistence. Condition for democracy is media literacy. You can see in my last question I said it cannot, but it is the condition for the democracy to exist. Without proper media literacy, democracy is not democracy, it's democracy, as I used to say.
The condition.
Yes, this is the precondition for democracy.
Okay, thank you, Professor.
Thank you.
Any questions from the audience? The professor is ready to answer your questions.
Yeah, it's not so different from what you raised. Actually, the explanation that you gave regarding that democracy cannot stand with media literacy. Actually, I didn't understand that thing that you explained. Can you please explain it again? Yeah.
Okay, that's the game of the words. I said it cannot coexist. Media literacy cannot coexist with democracy, but it is a precondition for existence of. It cannot go parallelly with democracy. No, it's a basic foundation for democracy, as I clearly stated in my presentation. It's precondition for democracy, for the real approach to understanding critical thinking of the reality. Means that I am able to make distinction between 80% of the garbage that I'm faced on social networking and social media, and 20% of the real information that can be used and sometimes abused by me.
Thank you very much, Professor. It's really interesting presentation, right? So
thank you.
Our next presentation is going to be Agalya. Nahid Sabir. Okay. And Shabir, Nahid Shabir, are you there? Nahid Shabir?
Yeah, hello.
Right.
Yeah.
Now it's your time. You can make your present. We are going to play your video. Now you
Yeah.
the video, right?
Yeah.
So you have to be online, right, to redeem for the Q&A.
Yeah. Sure.
Dear friends, colleagues, and those who I have never met, I would like to thank Department of Research and Development, National Institute of Education for organizing the International Research Symposium on Education, and also for inviting me to speak on the subject of importance of peace education to counter extremism as a social change initiative. So when we talk about the modern peace, it originated following the Second World War from the West. In the 1960s, peace education was widely taught in the Western institutions. Whereas when we talk about the third world or the global south, one finds limited research on peace education policy as a subject, and rather more focus is given to the transformation of the educational institutions. And when we see the peace education framework, the education building framework, it doesn't reflect the full potential of education in vindicating the social discrimination and other conflict drivers. Violence is certainly a grave threat for the contemporary societies, and for both developing and developed nations, they are facing this dilemma. And when we see the contemporary geopolitics, it is seen through the perspective and not only through the military and security lens as earlier, but also through different perspective. And the thoughts about peace of this world are, I would say, they are well explained by Murithi, who in 2009 wrote that the future world will bank on the ability of human beings to cast off the violent and militaristic attitudes to resolving problems. And consequently, I would say the peace education, it should be the central pillar to cultivate the human relations in the families, in the schools, at the workplace, within the countries and across the borders. And as far as youth is concerned, that can be certainly transformed positively through peace education, and the provision of knowledge, skills and attitudes are again the cornerstone to counter violence. How functional framework for peace can be attained? And the answer is definitely the formal education, that is the basic action of constructing peace and tolerance, because in the civilized societies, the academic institutions adopt a substantial share in the spread of thoughts and world perceptions. And in order to counter violence, there are certain conceptual challenges, because violence is too pervasive in the societies since ages, and violence and extremism has its links to education. It's a complex and multifaceted problem that has gained academic attention, particularly in the post 9/11 era, when the new trend emerged, which tried to sort out the causes of this act, and that eventually gave birth to the invention of a new terminology in the security discourse. So, dealing with the counter-violence approach, education also it faces enormous problems. It needs to have the support of the cohesion of the communities in which it functions, besides vesting the individual to act critically in the same community. Allocating funds to reinforce the security measures, they are no more relevant now, as it seems quite insufficient to protect the individuals, and the need of the hour is to make the efforts with a holistic framework. Efforts to build inclusive societies and peace do involve the study of those factors which gave rise to this situation, because violence itself is a big barrier in the course of the development, because it is something that it instills fear with the commitment, fear with the communities. However, every society experiences differently, and then when you have the lack of integrated approach, that adds fuel to the fire. However, even the good education system also suffers, and education will only be used as a tool when it becomes a catalyst for the critical thinking, and unless the societies adopt and they start thinking about the free debate, free thinking, no policy will work. The collective action can help in reducing the risk to peace that spans the national border, but the the challenges which I would say the societies face, they are many, like the role of social actors in that is absent in shaping the educational system, then the lack of coherent, progressive, contemporary education system in the societies that face the violent behavior, then you see the quality of education that is not monitored constantly, and the education system itself does not cater and train the students to counter the prevalent problematic narratives in the society and media. Though higher education institutions have a larger role to play in the peace promotion, yet it has to begin from the school level, because education is certainly an important tool that shapes the minds of the people. And in this regard, educational programming is not only about the content of the curriculum, it is also about the nurturing the connection between the people and their communities in order to safeguard a benign, cooperative and beneficial environment. And though the literature on the topic exists, yet it deals with a quite narrow aspects what schools and higher educational institutions ought to be doing or could be doing. Even every hour, the academic conferences are held at the national level, international forums, but I would say they merely end up with focusing on future conferences, and nothing concrete comes out, because we can achieve this when we start building up the inclusive resilience approach. We start adopting the instructive approach through culturally relevant peace programs. We require the inclusive coordination between the policymakers and the curriculum developers. They need to map the right policy, and then the students also require to learn the cognitive skills and constructive criticism with the logical reasoning. They need to study the anti-social behavior rather than being simply studying the human right issues. And then you see we need to have the acceptance of cultural and religious differences, because we need to learn about the multiculturalism and diversity training. And education definitely is the global antibody against terrorism, but how the lives and nations would become productive and peaceful, that is an important thing to understand. How violence will be shunned? The answer is through the peace education, which is the need of the hour, the resilience thinking, the resilient thinking, the critical thoughts. The societies can develop tools for negotiating their ways through a complex and changing world. That needs to be done for their children and for themselves. And if we really want to make the world a happy place, a peaceful place, free of violence, we need to do more to inculcate in the minds of the children against extremism, with the prevalence of the rule of law, individual liberty, mutual respect, but last but not least, with the interreligious dialogue, because unless the nations learn to decode between what is seen and what is heard, unless multiple problems of educational status quo are addressed, the societies will never find the answers why education fails to counter violence. We need to reconceptualize where education is positioned, because education is something that builds peace. For developing the discussion on the contribution of education in countering violence, the core value and structures of the hidden curricula of the education systems that needs to be emphasized. Education with the fundamental factors of democracy, freedom and justice undoubtedly mends the wrong behaviors, ignorance and diligence that lead to violent extremism. Thank you very much. Dear friends, colleagues and those who I have never met, I would like to thank Department of Research and Development, National Institute of Education for organizing the International Research Symposium on Education.
Right. Thank you. Thank you, Nahid Shabir. And it was really a nice presentation, and concentrating its theme on peace education, one of the interesting area and critical area where we should have more and more research. But unfortunately, these days, it is one of the area where there is the dearth of research evidence. And though your presentation not in the form that we expected, but it was really interesting discussion, and it was really exciting, and they have valuable ideas. And I think if there are any questions the audience have, now Nahid Shabir is ready to answer your questions. Shabir, you are there? Nahid, you are there? No, still you can hear me?
Yeah. Yeah.
If
Yeah.
you have any questions,
Yeah.
please ask
Thank you.
Nahid Shabir. She is online. Okay, Nahid Sabir, now just one question. It was, I was wondering all the while when you were making your presentations, how was the
Yeah.
situation in your country when you were, what kind of, which area are you concentrating on peace education? Are you concentrating on the school level, or in which level? What are the, the research audience? I mean, the data providers.
Yeah. Thank you.
Younger
Yeah.
generation.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. Because when we start thinking about the peace education, definitely I would say that it should be started at the school level. And I would like to quote the example of Denmark, where in 2014 they included this at the school level, like they included human rights in the national curriculum for the social studies, and then the compulsory subject of health, family education, and that was eventually incorporated in the education system of the country. So it has to start from the grassroots level. But the thing is, coming from the higher education institute, like I teach in the Punjab University. So for me, practically, I am more concerned to the higher education level, where I am directly concerned, because it is not introduced at the province level in the Punjab, where I come from. So I am actually, this is a part of my project where, because I am a Rotary Peace Fellow currently. So I am trying to get this subject introduced at the BS and MPhil level in the university where I come from. So my area of focus is right now the higher education institution, where peace studies should be introduced as a degree program. So this is my idea. I hope I could answer the question, or
Yeah.
again you can ask. Yeah.
That's the very reason why I raised that question, because knowing that you are a university academic, right? So I wanted to get that answer from you.
Yeah.
But okay, thank you very much.
Thank you for having me.
And, okay, what is the next presentation? Our next presentation is WKT Subhashini. Subhashini, are you ready?
Yes, I'm here.
Okay, now you can start.
I have sent the recorded video. If you can.
You have sent the pre-recorded video. Okay.
Yes.
We are playing it, and you have to stay in the audience, getting ready
Okay.
for the Q&A session, right?
Sure. Thank you.
Good afternoon, all. I'm WKT Subhashini from Sri Lanka. I'm here to present my research, the effect of PhET interactive simulations on student achievement and attitudes to mathematics at the secondary school level in Sri Lanka. Here is background of the study. Mathematics is a distinctive subject and a fundamental part of the school curriculum. It is an instrument for the development of all other sciences, according to Garford 2015. However, the majority of students worldwide despise mathematics. According to Scapello 2007, 75% of Americans discontinue studying mathematics and leave many professions related to mathematics. Considering Sri Lanka, the education sector has been suffering a significant challenge with poor performance in mathematics in secondary education, according to Lienage 2014. And also, we have so many factors to prove that above statement. Students should show proficiency in mathematics as a compulsory requirement for pursuing tertiary education from secondary education in Sri Lanka. However, it is very difficult to encourage the majority of students to achieve high success in mathematics. And there are a great number of potential factors that might affect the learning achievements of students in mathematics, the learning environment, the attitudes of both students and teachers, and the teaching methods, according to Hart 1989. Physics education technology simulations are regarded as the best and most effective computer applications for use in science teaching. Ben Ohai et al. 2021. Numerous scientists have attempted to investigate the effects of computer simulations on students' perception of science concepts and motivation. And various research studies have addressed the topic of PhET simulations and their effect on the achievement of students on the teaching of scientific subjects such as physics. The research on the mathematics education through PhET simulation is still in its infancy. Limited studies have not given the sufficient interest in investigating the effects of PhET on students' attitudes and motivation. Finally, the study aims to examine the impact of PhET simulations on students' academic achievement and attitudes towards mathematics at the secondary level in Sri Lankan schools. These are the objectives of my study. First one is to implement the PhET interactive simulation to improve the students' mathematical learning achievement. And second one, to compare the students' learning achievement between the experiment group taught by the PhET simulation and the control group taught by the traditional teaching method. And third one, to investigate the students' attitude towards learning mathematics through the PhET interactive simulations. This is a research methodology. I have used the Saunders and Lewis 2012 research onion framework to illustrate the methodology. Research philosophy is positivism. Research approach is deductive. Research strategy is experimental. Choices are quantitative. And the time is cross-sectional. And techniques used is questionnaire. And the procedure is analyzing by the SPSS. Here the samples I have taken students in grades 6, 7 and 8 of Nakulugamu Gamini Mahavidyalaya Hambantota, and 80 students are selected for two groups, control group and the experimental group. I have selected those students as simple random sampling. The experimental teaching and the lesson topic. Lesson fraction can be measured as the main content of the mathematics curriculum at both primary and secondary levels of education in Sri Lanka. At the secondary level, from grade 6 to grade 8, the fraction numbers range from basic concepts to solving fractions using basic arithmetic operations. Fractional concepts are all grouped together to create a set of PhET scenes, according to teacher's guide. And here you can see some screenshots of the simulation. It's according to the fraction. According to my experiment, control group was taught fractions based on traditional classroom-based teaching method, and the experimental group was taught fractions by PhET sims in the computer laboratory. Data collection method, it's the same time period was used for both groups to teaching. At the end, both groups answered the same question paper with 20 questions. In addition, the experimental group answered a questionnaire on attitudes related to mathematics. Then here's the research findings. First, the comparison of the mean score of mathematics achievement of the students who learn through the FETSIMS and traditional method. I have defined two hypotheses. First one is alternative and the second one is null hypothesis. And this is the group statistic according to the hypothesis. A control group is achieved 51.5 mean and also the standard deviation 19.15, and experimental group is achieved for 70.63 mean and also the standard deviation as 18.715. And also I have used the independent sample t-test according to Levin's test for the equality. Its significant value is achieved as 0.855. It is greater than 0.05. So assumption of homogeneity of variance is not violated. And also according to the significant p value, it is less than 0.001. It is therefore null hypothesis is rejected. According to that, there is a significant difference in mathematics marks of students between the experiment group and the control group. The findings reveal that the mean score mathematics achievement of students who learn through the FETSIMS in the experimental group is 19.125, greater than the traditional lecture approach at the significant level of p less than 0.001. Here is the mean value, mean score of students' attitudes towards mathematics learning through the FETSIMS. Here I have mentioned 10 items which I have used in the questionnaire. These are the mean values of the items, and the satisfaction level is highly positive. Overall mean value is achieved as 3.822. It is also highly positive. And also here you can see the interpretation of mean score of student attitudes according to that FETSIMS. You can see the ranges and the interpretation. This is according to the Sahasrakarsana 2017. This result reveals that the mean score attained by the students using FETSIMS to study mathematics is 3.822, which is higher than the committed criterion of 3.26. This indicates that the students' attitude towards learning mathematics are highly positive. And this is the conclusion of my presentation. The major findings in the research work have shown that FETSIMS is an important method of teaching which affects student achievement and attitude towards mathematics. The students who learn through FETSIMS perform better than those who learn through traditional methods. This result is in consonance with the findings of Randall, Morris, Wetzel, and Whitehill, 1992, and Poulos and Snyder, 1994. The outcome of this research is also indicates that students' attitude is positively affected by the using FETSIMS. The fact that the significant difference exists between the experimental and control groups in relation to their academic achievement encourage desirable changes in attitude of individual and behavioral towards mathematics. In light of the finding of the data that the students have difficulties in learning mathematics and that only the traditional method of teaching is in vogue in schools, this study contains that the situation needs to be changed. Mathematics teachers in secondary schools should channel students towards positive attainable goals in learning mathematics by reducing their difficulties and making the teaching and learning of mathematics practical and meaningful through the use of simulations. And these are the references I have followed to success my research. And this is the end of my presentation. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Taranga. Before going to the Q&A session, I would like to wish you a happy wedded life. She's going to have her engagement tomorrow. And despite the fact that she is having that all sort of festival things, her commitment to make this presentation, and thank you so much for your effort. And now this is the audience. If you have any questions, please, you can ask Taranga. It is a mathematics presentation. Sakuntala, it is your chance. You are a science graduate.
Thank you for your presentation. Can you explain more about the faith concept on faith? No, can you explain more about it?
Taranga, can you hear it? Taranga, are you there? Taranga.
Hello. Yes. Yes,
Yeah.
I can hear.
Now, Dr. Koditok wants to explain some more details about the faith concept. Am I right?
Yes, it's a online platform to learn mathematics in Colorado Brown University. It's based on the all the mathematics theories and physics and all the mathematical related subjects. In the A to Z, the clarifications are here, and in Sri Lanka, it is NIE has also recommended to learning, but it's not currently we are using in the schools and all the other secondary level or higher level studies. And also it's a interesting facilities to it can learning through so many languages. It's also in a Sinhala language. That's why we are focusing on that FET simulation implementation in Sri Lankan schools. That's all I think I have.
Taranga, one more question, right, before going up. And in the keynote address today now, Professor Gominda Ponnam Peruva raised a very important issue of the ethical considerations when you are doing experimental research. If you hear that right now, in your research also, I noticed that there are two groups, right, experimental and control group. And where one group is given something better than the other groups, it is, ethically not sound, right? So how did you manage, I mean, how we are going to, address that the issue of the ethical research ethics? Did you consider about it, or what's your idea about it?
Yeah, actually, I have selected the team that some simple random sampling, and I selected recommended that 6, 7, and 8 grade students, and out of that, I selected 80 students by separate into 2 groups, and then we we taught the thing separately. They are not integrated to other group and another. Then separately we take the feedback also. They are not integrated with this is they are going to laboratory and separately given the test and all the things and taught, and other group is taught in the traditional classroom test. And also we had not any negative feedback from the students, but the positive feedback from the laboratory students.
Yeah, that is the issue, because you had 2 equal groups, right? So one group is denied for having some sort of, advantages, educational materials, and the others are given. So that is not fair. So that is the ethical issue. So I think that must be considered. Okay, thank you very much, Taranga, Subhashini, and your registration tomorrow. I wish you a very happy wedded life tomorrow's onward.
Thank you so much. Thank you for the support you have done for in this situation. Thank you. Thank you.
Taranga, there is a question for you.
Yes.
Taranga, can you hear?
Yes, I'm here.
You come here. You come here.
Taranga, can you explain what is the lesson selected for the control group and experimental group?
Yes, same lesson we have taught. It's fractions. It's a so common mathematics lesson. for the 6 and 7 and 8 grades. That's why I selected that fraction lesson.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, Tananja. Have a happy wedded life from tomorrow onwards.
Thanks again. Thank you for your wishes.
What is huh? This is the last presentation. Now we are come to the end of the presentation. The last presentation, Mr. Mohammed Asim. Are you there, Mohammed? Asim, can you hear me? It seems that you're having the connection issue. Mohammed Asim. It's not. Yeah, it's not in the online session. Yeah, earlier I saw Mohammed Asim. Mohammed Asim. Please. Not there, no? Okay, that the presentation now earlier, Asim was there, but I think it's having some connection issues. So without Q&A session, I don't think that I should. Dr. Darsana, what is your idea about it? Should I got the video presentation with me. Should I play it? And but he's not there in the Q&A session. He's having some connection issue. What shall I do? Yeah. If the audience is ready, then we can listen to it. Answer from any questions to be raised. Audience, what is your idea? Should I play the presentation? Kodi talks. Yeah, ne? Okay, thank you very much. And it was a really wonderful session, and various researchers from around the world, from Turkey, Rome, Nigeria, Maldives Islands, Pakistan, and vast area of researchers addressing various issues like inclusive education, media literacy, peace education, mathematics education, all that. And we are in the process of curriculum reforms, and so those research findings, though they were conducted in other countries, they are having the relevance to our curriculum reform process. And thank you very much for your audience. And in the evening session, of course, there is a shrink of audience. Maybe after the meals, you might be feeling sleepy, or because we had some other conferences. NEC organized one, so that is why. And tomorrow also we are going to have the full day session. After the plenary sessions, we'll be having 2 technical sessions, and you are all welcome to tomorrow also. And I'm going to close this session now, and hoping that you will join with us tomorrow. And I think now you can enjoy refreshments down in the canteen. A plenary session is going to be started in this room, right? Okay, thank you very much, and have a good day.